When Judge Frank Caprio unfolded that small piece of notebook paper, his hands started trembling. The entire courtroom went silent. What this 10-year-old girl had written in crayon would break his heart into 1,000 pieces. But to understand why those words hit him so hard, you need to know what brought little Sofia Martinez into that courtroom in the first place. This is Sofia, 10 years old, 4th grade, standing in Providence Municipal Court on a Tuesday morning, wearing a dress 2 sizes too big and shoes held together with duct tape. Her mother, Maria, stood beside her, unable to look the judge in the eye. They weren't there for Sofia. They were there for 5 unpaid parking tickets totaling $475. But that number might as well have been 4 million. Because what Judge Caprio didn't know yet was that Sofia and her mother had been living in their 1998 Honda Civic for 3 months. Those parking tickets? They were from the nights Maria had parked illegally near the women's shelter, hoping to get Sofia inside where it was warm. The shelter was always full, so they'd sleep in the car, parked on streets where parking wasn't allowed after midnight. Ticket after ticket after ticket. Judge Caprio looked at the file in front of him. 5 violations, all on different nights, all in the same area. He looked up at Maria, then at Sofia. "Mrs. Martinez," he began, "can you tell me about these parking violations?" Maria's voice barely made it past a whisper. "Your Honor, I can explain." Sofia tugged on her mother's sleeve. Hard. Maria looked down. Sofia's eyes were pleading. "Don't tell him, Mama. Please don't tell him." But Judge Caprio saw it. He sees everything. 28 years on the bench teaches you to read people like books. "Sofia," he said gently, "is there something you'd like to say?" The little girl shook her head so fast her ponytail whipped back and forth, but her hand was clutching something. A piece of paper, folded into a tiny square. Judge Caprio noticed. "What do you have there, sweetheart?" Sofia looked at her mother. Maria nodded, tears already forming. Sofia walked forward, her shoes squeaking against the courtroom floor, and handed the paper to the bailiff. He brought it to the judge. What happened next, nobody in that courtroom was prepared for. But first, you need to understand how Sofia and Maria ended up here. Because 3 months earlier, their lives looked completely different. Maria worked 2 jobs, morning shift at a laundromat, evening shift cleaning streets. Sofia was a straight-A student who loved to draw. They had a small apartment in South Providence. Nothing fancy, but it was theirs. It was home. Then Maria got sick, really sick. She ignored the pain in her abdomen for weeks because she couldn't afford to miss work. By the time she finally went to the emergency room, she was septic. Emergency surgery, 2 weeks in the hospital. Medical bills that swallowed her savings in 48 hours. When she got out, both jobs were gone. Rent was 3 weeks overdue. The eviction notice was already taped to the door. Maria had $600 to her name, a 10-year-old daughter, and nowhere to go. She tried the shelters first. They were all full. She called every number she could find. Waiting lists stretched months long. So she did what she had to do. She took that $600, kept her car insurance current, bought a gym membership so they could shower, and turned their Honda into a bedroom. Sofia never complained, not once. She'd do her homework in the public library after school. Maria would pick her up at closing time. They'd eat dollar menu dinners in parking lots. Then they'd find a place to park for the night, somewhere safe, somewhere Sofia could sleep without hearing things that would give her nightmares. But safe spots in Providence are hard to find when you're living in a car. And parking enforcement doesn't care about your story. They just see a violation, a ticket, a fine you can't pay. Those 5 tickets represented 5 nights when Maria had parked near the women's shelter, praying they'd have space. They never did. But the parking enforcement officer who patrolled that street at 2 a.m., he was always there. Ticket, ticket, ticket. $475 Maria didn't have, couldn't have, would never have. When the court summons came, Maria thought about just not showing up. What were they going to do? Arrest her? Take her car? At least in jail, Sofia would have to go into the system. Someone would have to help her. But Sofia begged her mother to go to court. She had a plan. She wouldn't tell Maria what it was. She just said, "Trust me, Mama. Please." So here they were. standing in front of Judge Caprio, and he was unfolding that tiny piece of notebook paper covered in crayon. The judge's expression changed immediately. His eyes moved across the page slowly. Once, twice, 3 times. His jaw tightened. His hand went to his mouth. The courtroom had never been this quiet. "Sophia," he said, his voice cracking, "did you write this yourself?" She nodded. "Will you read it out loud for me? Can you do that?" Sophia took a shaky breath. Maria put her hand on her daughter's shoulder. And this 10-year-old, who'd been sleeping in a car for 3 months, who'd been doing homework by flashlight, who'd been telling her classmates she couldn't have play dates because they were remodeling their house, read her letter to Judge Caprio. "Dear Judge Caprio," Sophia began, her voice small but steady. "My name is Sofia Martinez, and I am 10 years old. My mama got in trouble for parking wrong, but it's my fault, not hers." Judge Caprio leaned forward. "Sophia, sweetheart, why do you think it's your fault?" Sophia looked at her mother, then back at the judge. "Because mama was parking by the shelter because I get scared sleeping in the car. She was trying to park close to lights and people so I wouldn't be scared. If I was braver, she could park in places that are free." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Caprio held up his hand for silence. His eyes were glistening now. "Keep reading, sweetheart." Sophia's voice got smaller. "We live in our car, Your Honor. Mama works really hard, but she got sick, and the hospital took all our money. She never tells me we're poor, but I know. I know we can't pay these tickets. I know $400 is so much money." She paused, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "I drew you a picture on the back because Mama says you're a nice judge. I drew our car, and me and Mama and I drew a house next to it because that's what I wish for. Mama says wishes are free, so I made one for you." Judge Caprio slowly turned the paper over. There in crayon was a child's drawing, a blue Honda, 2 stick figures holding hands, and next to them a house with a red door, yellow windows, and smoke coming from the chimney. At the bottom, in careful letters, "Home." That's when Judge Caprio broke. This judge who's seen thousands of cases, who's known for his composure, who's helped countless people with grace and wisdom. He removed his glasses and pressed his fingers against his eyes. His shoulders shook. The bailiff stepped forward, concerned, but Judge Caprio waved him back. When he looked up, tears were streaming down his face. He wasn't trying to hide them. "Mrs. Martinez," he said, his voice thick, "why didn't you tell anyone you were homeless?" Maria's answer came through sobs. "Because I was ashamed, Your Honor. Because I'm her mother. I'm supposed to protect her. I'm supposed to give her a home, and I failed. I failed my daughter." "No," Judge Caprio's voice cut through the courtroom like thunder. "No, Mrs. Martinez, look at me." Maria looked up. "You didn't fail anyone. You kept your daughter safe. You kept her in school. You kept her fed and clean and loved. Do you know how many parents couldn't do what you've done? You didn't fail. The system failed you." He turned to Sophia. "And you, young lady, you are one of the bravest people I've ever met. You know that?" Sophia shook her head. "Yes, you are. And I'm going to tell you something important. Being scared doesn't mean you're not brave. Brave people get scared all the time. They just keep going anyway. And that's exactly what you've been doing." He looked back at the tickets, then at Sophia's drawing, then at this mother and daughter who'd been carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders for 3 months. "These tickets are dismissed, all of them. You don't owe this court anything." Maria gasped. Sophia grabbed her mother's hand. "But I'm not done," Judge Caprio continued. He turned to his bailiff. "Get me the number for the Rhode Island Coalition for the Homeless. Right now." Then to his clerk, "Call Judge Thompson's wife. She runs that housing assistance program. Tell her we have an emergency case." The courtroom was watching history happen. This wasn't just compassion. This was action. Judge Caprio stood up from his bench and walked down to where Sophia and Maria stood. He knelt down to Sophia's eye level. "Judges don't do that. They stay behind the bench. They maintain distance. But not this time. Sophia, I want you to listen to me very carefully," he said, holding her small hand in both of his. "You and your mama are going to be okay. I promise you. We're going to find you a real home with a red door just like in your picture." Sofia's face crumpled, and she threw her arms around the judge's neck. Judge Caprio hugged her back, his eyes squeezed shut, his own tears mixing with hers. The entire courtroom was crying now. The bailiff, the clerk, the people waiting for their own cases. The prosecutor, who'd probably seen 1,000 parking violations in his career, was wiping his eyes with his sleeve. But Judge Caprio wasn't finished, because what happened over the next 2 hours would change Sofia and Maria's lives forever. He made 7 phone calls from the bench. 7. In between other cases, he was on the phone. First, the Rhode Island Coalition for the Homeless. They had an emergency placement program. By the end of the call, Sofia and Maria had a spot in transitional housing. 2 weeks, guaranteed, while they found something permanent. Second call, Judge Thompson's wife, who ran the Rhode Island Housing Network. She pulled strings, made promises, called in favors. By the time Judge Caprio hung up, Maria had 3 apartment showings scheduled for the next day, all within her budget with her old income, all accepting Section 8 applications. Third call, a lawyer friend who specialized in medical debt. "I'm sending someone to you," Judge Caprio said. "She's drowning in hospital bills from emergency surgery. I need you to help her. Pro bono. Don't argue with me, Thomas." Fourth call, the laundromat where Maria used to work. "This is Judge Frank Caprio. Yes, that Judge Caprio. I have a woman who used to work for you, Sofia Martinez. She was hospitalized with sepsis. I need to know if you'd consider rehiring her. She's reliable, she's hardworking, and she's desperate." Pause. "You will? Monday morning? Thank you. You won't regret this." Fifth call, his own foundation. "Yes, Judge Caprio runs a charity foundation. Most people don't know that. I need emergency assistance funds released today. How much? Whatever it takes to get a mother and daughter out of their car and into stable housing. Yes, today." Sixth call, Sofia's school. He spoke directly to the principal. "I need you to check on a student, Sofia Martinez, 4th grade. She's been homeless for 3 months and hasn't told anyone. I need you to make sure she has access to the school breakfast program, the after-school program, and any resources she needs. And I need you to do it quietly, with dignity. This little girl has been through enough." Seventh call, a furniture donation charity. "I need a full apartment setup, beds, kitchen table, basic furniture, for a family of 2 moving out of homelessness. Can you deliver by the end of the week?" Every single call was made in that courtroom, in front of everyone. Because Judge Caprio wanted Sofia and Maria to hear him fighting for them. He wanted them to know that their letter, their courage, their honesty had moved mountains. When he finally set down the phone, he looked exhausted, but his eyes were alive with purpose. "Mrs. Martinez," he said, "you have a place to stay tonight. My clerk has the address. It's a transitional housing unit. Clean, safe, warm. Tomorrow, you have 3 apartment showings. Monday, you have your job back at the laundromat. The medical bills, we're going to work on those. It won't happen overnight, but we're going to get them under control." Maria couldn't speak. She just stood there, shaking, her hand over her mouth. "And Sofia," Judge Caprio continued, "I'm keeping your drawing. I'm going to frame it and put it in my chambers. So every single day, when I'm making decisions, I'll remember you. I'll remember why this work matters." He tapped the drawing gently. "You gave me a gift today. You reminded me what justice is supposed to look like. It's not just about punishing violations. It's about seeing the human being in front of you. It's about asking why before we ask how much." The courtroom erupted in applause. Not the polite golf clap you sometimes hear in court. Real applause. Standing ovation. People were cheering. Sofia buried her face in her mother's side, overwhelmed. Maria was sobbing so hard she couldn't stand. The bailiff brought her a chair. Judge Caprio waited for the noise to die down. Then he said something that would be quoted in every news article written about this case. "Let me tell you all something. This little girl shouldn't have to write a letter to a judge to get help. No child should have to draw a picture of a home they don't have and beg for mercy on behalf of their parent. The fact that Sofia had to do this means we, as a society, have failed. He looked directly at the camera that records all court proceedings. If you're watching this and you're struggling and you think you're alone, you're not. If you're living in your car with your kids because the rent is too high and the shelters are full, you're not alone. If you're choosing between medicine and food, between gas and electricity, you're not alone, bum. And you shouldn't have to write a letter to a judge to get help. He paused. But until we fix these systems, until we build enough affordable housing and pay people enough to live on and make healthcare accessible, until then, if you need help, you ask for it. You walk into this courtroom and you tell me the truth, because I can't help you if I don't know what you're facing. It was more than a speech. It was a promise to every person struggling in Providence, in Rhode Island, in America. You're not invisible. Your suffering matters. Ask for help. The case officially concluded. But Judge Caprio asked Maria and Sofia to stay behind after the courtroom cleared. He sat with them for 20 minutes. No cameras, no audience. Just a judge, a mother, and a little girl. He asked Sofia about school, about her favorite subjects. She said she loved art and math. Math surprised him. She explained that she liked how math always had a right answer. It's not confusing like everything else, she said. He asked Maria about her dreams for Sofia. Maria said she just wanted her daughter to have opportunities, to go to college, to never feel the kind of fear and uncertainty they'd lived through these past 3 months. She will, Judge Caprio promised. I'm going to make sure of it. And he did, because 3 months later, Maria and Sofia moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in South Providence. Rent was $600 a month. Maria's new job at the laundromat paid enough to cover it with some left over. The medical debt was reduced by 80% through the lawyer's negotiations. The remaining amount was on a payment plan she could actually afford. But here's what nobody expected. The video of Sofia's case went viral. Millions of views, tens of millions. People from around the world reached out. Donations poured in. Within 2 weeks, a GoFundMe started by someone who'd seen the video raise $47,000 for Sofia's education fund. Every penny went into a college savings account that Judge Caprio's foundation manages. Sofia's drawing, the one with the car and the house with the red door, hangs in Judge Caprio's chambers, exactly like he promised. But he had copies made. One went to Maria. One went to the Rhode Island Coalition for the Homeless, where it hangs in their lobby. One went to the hospital where Maria had her surgery, where it reminds the billing department that behind every unpaid medical bill is a human being. 6 months after that court date, Sofia wrote Judge Caprio another letter. This one was typed on a computer at the library. No crayon this time. She told him about her new room, about how she had her own bed now with a yellow comforter she picked out herself, about how she joined the art club at school and won an award for a painting of a sunrise, about how Mama was smiling again. At the end of the letter, she wrote, "Thank you for keeping your promise. We have a home now, a real one, with a red door." Judge Caprio framed that letter too. It hangs right next to the drawing. But the real impact of Sofia's case went far beyond one family. Because after the video went viral, 3 things happened that changed Providence's approach to municipal violations forever. First, the city implemented a hardship assessment protocol. Now, before fines are issued for quality of life violations like parking tickets, enforcement officers are trained to ask questions, to look for signs of homelessness or extreme poverty, to connect people with resources instead of just writing tickets. Second, the municipal court partnered with social services to station a caseworker in the courthouse 2 days a week. Anyone appearing before Judge Caprio or the other judges can be immediately connected with housing assistance, food programs, medical care, job placement services. Third, a local law firm started a pro bono project specifically for people facing fines they can't afford. They call it Sofia's Project. In the first year, they helped 234 families avoid warrants, license suspensions, and jail time for unpaid fines. All because a 10-year-old girl had the courage to hand a judge a letter written in crayon. Judge Caprio talks about Sofia's case in every interview he does now. He says it's the one that changed him the most, because he'd been practicing compassionate justice for decades. He'd dismissed thousands of tickets. He'd helped countless people. But Sofia reminded him that sometimes compassion isn't enough. Sometimes you have to fight. You have to make phone calls. You have to use your power and your privilege and your platform to move mountains. She was 10 years old and she was braver than most adults I know, he says. She stood in front of a judge and told the truth even though she was terrified, even though she thought it might make things worse for her mother. That's courage. That's real courage. Maria says that day in court saved their lives. We were drowning, she told a local news reporter. Every day I was trying to figure out how to keep going, how to keep Sofia in school, how to keep us safe. I was running out of answers. And then Judge Caprio, he didn't just dismiss the tickets, he threw us a life raft. He pulled us out of the water. Today, Sofia is 13. She's in 7th grade, honor roll every semester. She still loves art. She wants to be an architect when she grows up. So I can design homes for people who don't have them, she explains. She volunteers at the Rhode Island Coalition for the Homeless on weekends. She's shy about the attention her case brought, but she understands why it matters. I think people needed to know that judges can be kind, she says, and that it's okay to ask for help even when you're really scared. Maria still has the original crayon drawing. She keeps it in a frame in their living room. Their apartment has a red door. Maria painted it herself. It wasn't red when they moved in, but she got permission from the landlord to paint it, because Sofia's drawing wasn't just a wish. It was a promise. And promises matter. Every year on the anniversary of that court date, Sofia and Maria visit Judge Caprio. They bring him a new drawing. Sofia still draws, though her skills have improved dramatically. Last year's drawing was a portrait of Judge Caprio himself, sitting at his bench, with Sofia's original crayon drawing hanging on the wall behind him. He cried when she gave it to him. You know what the beautiful thing about this story is, Judge Caprio says? It's not about me. It was never about me. It's about a little girl who refused to let her mother carry shame for something that wasn't her fault. It's about a mother who did everything she could to protect her child. It's about a community that rallied when they saw people in need. I just happened to be the person in the position to help that day. But the real heroes? They're Sofia and Maria. This story spread around the world because it represents something people are hungry for. Proof that compassion still exists. Proof that the system can work when the people in power choose to see humanity instead of just violations. Proof that one person, even a 10-year-old girl with a crayon drawing, can change the trajectory of their entire life by telling the truth. Sofia's letter to Judge Caprio was 11 sentences long, 93 words, written in purple crayon on notebook paper with the edges torn where it had been ripped from a spiral binder. And those 93 words moved mountains. So if you're watching this and you're struggling, remember, Sofia, remember that asking for help isn't weakness. It's courage. Remember that your story matters, that someone out there is waiting to help you. They just need to know you need help. And if you're in a position of power, if you're a judge, a teacher, a boss, a lawmaker, a person with resources, remember Sofia too. Remember that behind every parking ticket, every late payment, every violation, there's a human being. Maybe someone living in their car with their daughter. Maybe someone who's one emergency away from losing everything. Look closer. Ask questions. Use your power to build people up instead of just punishing them for falling down. This channel, All Rise, exists to share these stories, to show you that compassion and justice can coexist, that courtrooms don't have to be places of fear and punishment. They can be places of healing and hope. Subscribe to All Rise if you want to see more stories like Sofia's. If you believe that kindness matters. If you think the world needs more Judge Caprios and fewer people who just see violations instead of human beings. And leave a comment. Tell me about a time someone showed you unexpected kindness. Tell me about a moment when you felt seen when you were invisible. Tell me about your Sofia moment. Because we all have them. Times when we needed someone to look past the surface and see the truth underneath. Sofia Martinez is 13 now. She has a home. She has hope. She has a future. All because she wrote a letter to a judge who was willing to read it, really read it, and then do something about it. Be that person for someone else. Be the Judge Caprio in someone's story. Because you never know, your compassion today might change someone's entire life tomorrow. Thanks for watching All Rise. And remember, justice without compassion is just punishment. But justice with compassion, that's when miracles happen.